First responders put their lives on the line every day they show up for work. Now think about it. These are the people that take the bad guys off the street. They're the people that save a life at the scene of a really nasty crash, or they just keep our neighborhood safe. So the question becomes, why have they chosen a career that constantly puts them in the danger zone? We decided to go directly to the source to find out why.
The Rapid City Fire Department has been combining firefighting service with ambulance service for about 20 years now. They've gone from having 6 ambulances to 14. And today, about 75% of all the calls they get are for medical emergencies. Cassidy Marta is one of the department's EMTs. That's an emergency medical technician.
I'm just going to be straight up with you. Why do you do this? I mean, you've chosen a career path that puts you in, and this is no stretch of hyperbole or anything like that. You're put yourself in a danger zone on a daily basis. Why would you choose a career where you have to do that?
I suppose it boils down to the fact that we practice and we prepare and we train and we educate long and hard enough where it doesn't appear to be an emergency to us. It's not our emergency. It's the emergency we show up to mitigate.
So the idea that your life is on the line is kind of in the back of your mind. It really doesn't factor into your everyday work?
Yeah, I'm sure in the back of my mind it does,
okay.
But you just put fear in your pocket and keep going.
Fear in your pocket. I like that. Put fear in your pocket. Okay.
Cassidy says seeing trauma and serious injuries on a daily basis can take its toll after a while.
I think with the fire department, specifically Rapid City, we have a big group and a community that helps alleviate the low points that some of us experience because of what we see.
So there are occasions, I'm thinking, that you just say, hey, I need maybe a timeout, and I need to talk to someone about this?
Yeah, we have a peer support team that is ready and willing to be able to alleviate our stresses, whatever they may be, whether they involve our calls or if they're completely external from the department. I think naturally you always have to have your head on a swivel and make sure that the area that you're in service for, you're staying safe. Mm-hmm. It can be anything from a domestic violence and assault call to a difficulty breathing call in a nursing home.
Yeah.
Safety is priority. My safety, my partner's safety, and my patient's safety. But it doesn't depend on the call type to create or break that safety.
And yes, a career like this one can take its toll on your personal life and on your relationship. Constantly being in a danger zone is one thing, but the amount of time you have to spend away from home is quite another.
A big difference a lot of departments versus our department has is when we are at work, we are at work. We are in the fire station. We're not responding to calls from our house. Like many volunteer agencies may. We are dedicated 24 hours out of our entire day to be in the fire station that we're assigned to. I think being present every third day on shift, you're going to see a variety of calls. There's influxes of different categories of calls, whether it's terminal illnesses rearing their head, during the holidays, cardiac events based on drug overdoses. They come in waves to a point, but
okay.
It's very sporadic, to be honest. It's never something that you can say, you know what, today I'm feeling this type of call is going to happen. It's very unpredictable.
Responding to fires, responding to medical calls, constant training, they're all parts of the job at the Rapid City Fire Department. Up next on West 605, it's the life of another kind of first responder. Being a police officer is a male-dominated career field, but that's all changing now. And being a female police officer brings its own set of rules and its own dynamic. Officer Morgan Slanina with the Rapid City Police Department has been on the streets for about 4 years now, and she says she decided to become a police officer after a personal trauma.
So I've just had personal life experiences. I'm very open about I was in a violent, toxic relationship, and it took an officer to sit me down and say, hey, this is not going to end well. Things are not going to change. And although I have loving family, loving siblings, loving friends, it took that interaction with them for a complete stranger who didn't know me, had just met me, to tell me, hey, this is not going to end well, and really just putting that fear in me. So just that kind of interaction always gave me that respect for law enforcement.
That connection just struck a nerve with you.
Yeah, it just really, it really helped me. And then kind of like other life experiences that I had, looking at that and kind of going into this line of work, being able to relate to people is great. There's times where I can sit down with somebody who hates law enforcement completely, and they'll talk about life experiences they've had, and I can say, yeah, I know exactly what you're feeling, and kind of turns that light bulb on their mind of, this is not a robot wearing a uniform in front of me, this is a human. And so there's definitely been times where I've had those connections with people.
So let me make sure I'm hearing you correctly. The reason you got into law enforcement was to relate and have connections with people.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. I get to help people. I get to meet all kinds of different people. You get to do some other fun stuff along the way too, but yeah, it's one of the biggest reasons that I do it is I want them to see that I'm a human, the person in the same uniform next to me is a human from a different walk of life, gone through different experiences, but we all have the same main goal of keeping people safe, helping people, bringing justice to our community, that kind of stuff.
Officer Slanina is a wife and a mother. She says communication with her spouse is very important, to a point.
We definitely have our days where if I've had a bad day, I'll come home and he'll kind of either has already, texting is a great technology that we can use when he hasn't heard from me and, going on hour 6 of our shift, and he just kind of sends me a, hey, I know you're busy, what do you want to do for dinner? Kind of that stuff, and I can tell him, hey, I had a tough call, or hey, we're super slammed, I'm going to be late tonight, or that kind of stuff. So he's really understanding in the sense he sees how much I love this job. He trusts me and he trusts my other officers, and he knows that we get great training and we have that blue family, as people call it in law enforcement, which is great. We all can lean on each other, and he's very supportive. He doesn't like to hear a lot about the stuff that we do, which I get 100%. Obviously, he loves me and wants me to come home safe, so like everybody else.
But he kind of knew, he had to have known what he was getting into.
Yeah, he definitely did, and it was one of those things he wasn't necessarily excited about, but obviously, and it's a give and take, and so we kind of worked well on that, and now we have our own family. We started, having a little girl, and so it puts even more challenges on it, but we're great about, working together and kind of working through that.
I'm imagining you at the dinner table with your husband and your little daughter, and how does that, because typical families is, hi dear, how was your day, and things like that. Is that the way the conversation goes, or how awkward does it get?
It's not awkward at all. One, it's if I get home on time, that's good. So
that's a plus.
Yeah, that's a plus. Okay. But it's not, it's kind of one of those things. I'll tell him, hey, I had this crazy call, or I bumped into this person, or that kind of thing, but he's not one. He doesn't want me to sit and say, I did this call, and then I did this call, and then I did this, or did that. It's not that kind of thing, but it's definitely, if something funny happens, or, a funny situation happens, I'll kind of fill him in on that stuff. But obviously this job, we have certain confidentiality we have to keep. So I'll tell him what I can, or, what I need to. It's one of those things, we kind of have these almost, situations when we all get off, if our shift all gets off on time and we're kind of hanging out, waiting to get kicked loose while the other shift gets their cars ready and gets out on the street. We all kind of have our sessions where we'll talk about our calls if something's bothering us. That officer next to me was on the call, so him and I can talk about it, or that kind of thing. But so by the time I get home, it's not something really where I need to bring that up. If it's something I do, my husband's there to listen, but for the most part, it's kind of a, how was your day? What'd you do? Oh, no, same old.
Back out on the job, Morgan says being a female police officer can actually be an advantage.
There are calls that specifically, as a female, I can go to and handle, and it's a different dynamic or it's a different resolution than a male.
Tell me a little bit more about that. What sort of a call would you as a female officer be called to?
So there's sometimes we deal with some subjects, whether they're under the influence of something or it's just a mindset where they just don't like cops. Being a female, you show up on scene and that person had it in their mind that they were gonna fight with the cops as soon as they got there. And then I show up and knock on the door saying, Rapid City Police Department Officer Slanina, what's going on today?
And that
can bring them down to a level to where they're like, well, this is why I'm mad. And they'll still be amped up, they'll still be angry, but maybe in their mind now they're like, well, am I gonna fight with this female?
They're more likely to calm down and talk with a female officer?
Yep. Now that doesn't always happen. Some people are when they want to fight, they want to fight, and that's part of the job. And that's where your training has to kick in and your buddies and knowing. Obviously in this job we deal with people every day nonstop, so you get really good at reading things, situations. So being a female officer, I think it's definitely helpful to be a female officer because I do have more of those times where I show up and say, okay, calm down. I understand you're upset. Let's talk about this. Kind of going that route versus showing up and just putting hands on people and trying to sort that out.
And one more thing, when it comes to those so-called routine traffic stops, they can seem routine, but you never know what you could be walking into.
Nothing about our traffic stops is routine. Mostly because that person is in a vehicle and we don't know what they're going to do.
Or what they have.
Or what they have in the vehicle. Yeah. We don't know the knowledge that they know. They know that they have a gun under their seat. We don't. So that's one thing that's really hard is when people talk about the routine traffic stops. So I think definitely there's been times where I've done traffic stops. You find somebody that's driving under the influence, you're making that arrest, and they're calm and cordial with you, and you're dealing with and you're doing your investigation. As maybe a young, naive officer, I just kind of always assumed that people respected me like I was respecting them, and then come to find out either pat searches or if they're under arrest, they're searching the vehicle, you find a loaded firearm or something, or they had a large hunting knife on them or something, and that kind of takes you back a little bit, and you go, oh gosh, this every stop is you need to treat it as though someone is going to hurt you.
Officer Emily Scogan is with the Sturgis Police Department, and she's the only female officer on the entire force.
It's pretty fun. They crack jokes and I crack them right back, and I make sure that they know I can hold my own. And I think being a female in this job is really good for when we have encounters with other females. Being smaller, being a female, I have to be very smart with how I word my phrases and everything, and I de-escalate more with talking and getting that person to talk back to me in situations like that, where having to talk with somebody who's grieving, and in those situations try and make the situation a little bit better for them.
Officer Scogan says one of the hardest parts of being a first responder is not letting what you do for a living bleed over into your home life.
They always say separate your life and your work. Well, in this career, you really can't. And that stuff does come home with you, and you have to take care of yourself even afterwards.
How do you maintain that professional demeanor when obviously you're human?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's got to be times when you just get angry or just disgusted, or you're frustrated with the situation right now. How tough is that to maintain that professional demeanor?
It was a little challenging at first. I'd definitely say I had some really good field training officers who taught me to compose yourself and take that second before you get out of your car or get back into your car and just breathe. Can't ever forget to breathe.
Okay.
Or sit in your vehicle and play your favorite song or something. And it's silly, but it's true.
No, I'm not laughing at you.
And that's how I do it, is I just try and make sure myself is calm before I can try and make somebody else calm.
And of course, being on patrol in Sturgis brings its own set of challenges, especially during the annual motorcycle rally.
It Well, it's a very big experience, kind of a culture shock. I think anybody that comes here is like, holy cow, kind of shock.
Yeah.
But working it was so much fun. I got to meet so many new people who I'm lifelong friends with now.
So tell me and our viewers, I mean, what happens when the rally comes around that involves police? My understanding is you're bringing in police officers from all over the place.
Yep, we bring in 60 to 80 other officers out of different states and some here from South Dakota, and they've been coming for 10 years, 25 years. They come here for those 2 weeks. They stay out at Fort Meade and they come here. We eat food. The church provides food for us all, and we just get to all hang out for 2 whole weeks and just have fun.
So someone somewhere at some time had to have given you a little bit of a, oh, by the way, this is what the rally's all about, so to talk.
Yeah, they kind of did, and I was like, oh, that's not how it's gonna be. It was how it was gonna be.
And you found out the hard way.
I was culture shocked for probably the first 4 days.
Never a dull moment here in West 605. Whether you're carrying a first aid kit and an oxygen mask or a gun and handcuffs, becoming a first responder is a decision that comes with risks. But the ones I've talked with say they're okay with that, and they all have one other thing in common. They enjoy engaging with people, helping people. Deputy Keith Fenner is with the Pennington County Sheriff's Office, and before becoming a sheriff's deputy, he was a corrections officer.
I chose this career because I like to help people, talk to people, and it just allows me to do that. And I in a way, I do feel that I was called to do this line of work and to be able to provide that help to the people that need it. So,
did you always feel that way, or was there something that kind of flipped the switch for you?
I've always felt that way. My past careers, I've worked in security and along those lines, and I've always just enjoyed interacting with the community and speaking with people, and being able to lend that helping hand when they need it. That's been for the last 20 years at least, that I've felt that way, and I still feel called to do that and help people where I can.
Is there a difference in the dynamic? And I find it very interesting that you made the switch from corrections to just the out and about town sort of deputy. And by the way, you're up in Hill City most of the time, right?
Correct. I'm a contract deputy out of Hill City.
Okay.
So.
I'm wondering, is there, or what are the differences in the dynamic between being in a jail facility versus out just driving around your patrol car? You know, what are the differences?
The main difference is in the jail, of course, you're helping inmates. On the street, you're helping everybody, and so there's a lot more interaction with a lot more people. In a jail setting, it's only 60 people you're helping, where I can have more communication with a lot more people out and about in a patrol setting than sitting in a jail. Who
would you rather deal with? 60 inmates or just Joe Random whoever out on the streets?
Everybody on the streets. That sounds more interesting to me. I have nothing against the inmates at the jail or anything like that. I enjoyed helping them as well. I would prefer to be outside and in the outdoors. So I think a lot of people just see the badge and they think I'm out to get people into trouble or arrest the people that are in trouble. And I'll talk to random strangers on the street and just see how their day's going. Building that relationship with the public helps us with being supported as law enforcement.
Deputy Fenner says being a first responder has the usual ups and downs, but there's one day that will always stay with him.
I responded to a call. Ambulance was en route. It was an infant child, and we had to do CPR on the child, and unfortunately the child did not make it. So that was probably about my worst day ever. So still kind of gets to me a little. So
I get that.
Yep. So that's my worst day so far.
Okay.
I know there's a lot more worse things that could happen, but I didn't know the family, I didn't know the kid, but like I said, when you do this job, your job is to become personable with the people you're speaking to and interacting with, and in that short period of time, I mean, you do build that short-term relationship. So it still kind of hurts, when you see bad things like that happen. And there was no foul play with that at all, but it was still an upsetting situation.
I can see that. I can see it on you. It's interesting. Did you ever think when you put that badge on that you think of, taking the bad guys off the street, or, stopping a speeding vehicle and things like that, but to save a little baby's life, did that ever enter your mind?
No, not really. I mean, it's one of those things where, we get trained for all that stuff. Basic first aid and CPR and all that, and so it's something that you have and you train on regularly or yearly. Usually the ambulance crews kind of beat us there usually, so usually we don't deal with that too much, but when you do get there first and you do have to administer that aid, I mean, it kind of takes you back a minute, so, but you gotta be on your feet and on the ball and continue to uphold your professionalism and get the job done.
So why did he decide to become a first responder? Fenner says there were a couple of factors involved.
As a religious belief, I believe I was called to this job, to treat everybody fairly. I mean, that's part of my religion, and I think my parents, the way they raised me, they told me to treat everybody fairly. My dad, he's quite the talker, and he likes to interact with people all the time, and he's just a maintenance guy. So, but he there's a lot of people that know him, and I think I probably get that part from him. So,
firefighters, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, police officers, sheriff's deputies, men and women who believe in giving back and believe in answering the call. Here in West 605.